Okay, we are live. Okay, let's do three, two, one. Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 146 that we're going to title right now My Hero, even though I don't know if we have any heroes in the podcast, but we're just going to start off. I know it's been a while. Tom has really, really exciting news to share, and I think it's when his Nintendo bookcase is going to arrive.
Yes. So I'm now in the Pacific time zone. I moved to Seattle. So, yeah, that happened last week. That was fun. So the show has been a little chaotic because I now work for Amazon. And that whole process took a whole lot of time and a whole lot of effort. But now I'm sitting here in my temporary housing. It's a little bigger than a nice hotel room, but no complaints. New appliances. I'm not paying a dime for it yet. And yeah, I've got to go find a place to live.
The keyword there is yet.
Right. I've got like the next 30-ish days or so to find a place to live, which it's challenging. Coming from Ohio to Seattle, the prices are kind of ridiculous. Like for the rent in Seattle for an average place, I could get a mansion in Ohio. Mostly because people don't want to live in Ohio. I didn't want to live in Ohio. That's why I'm in Seattle.
So let's first, everyone, let's say congratulations. So Tom now is, I guess, more legit. Is that the right word?
I think I'm legit. I still don't know where to use fam. Because I know all the kids are saying fam. I guess I'm totally lit, fam. No. Totally lit.
So with that, yes, everything's been a little crazy, and we will get back to our regular scheduled shows as soon as Tom learns how to be, I guess, a West Coaster. Is that the right answer?
I have to learn how to Seattle.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've New Jersey'd for my entire life, so so far I'm okay. But we had some topics. It's not like a really jam-packed show, but I want to first start out. Tom posted this in. This hacker is my new hero. So this story is excellent. Do you want to take this, Tom?
Sure. So this story has been kicking around for a little bit, and now it hit Gizmodo, so it's getting more into the public eye and less out of the more techie circles. There is a rogue hacker. I'm trying to find his handle because he does not.
Janitor with a zero.
Janitor with a zero, yes. So we don't know his or her real name. And they are sending around malware called BrickerBot, various versions of various effectiveness, to go through and try to log into various Internet of Things devices and brick them, like corrupting the actual file systems on the devices so they won't boot anymore. The janitor describes this program as kind of chemotherapy for the internet, which is a really apt description. I guess technically you could call this malware. It is destructive, but I mean, chemotherapy is a really apt metaphor here. It's destructive, but ultimately it's probably doing some good for the internet. Janitor's what is this? Brick breaker? I just lost
BrickerBot.
it. BrickerBot. Yeah. BrickerBot actually does try to secure the devices before it, digitally tears them apart and prevents them from booting again. While this is a highly illegal project, I think this is cool, and it's going to make a small dent in the list of insecure IoT devices out there.
I mean, basically, he's going around infecting them, testing default passwords. If it works, then he's bricking them. And with the idea, and you got to read this. Basically, the idea is saying, "Hey, it was insecure to begin with. I'm just doing you a public service." And I'll just read. It's quickly what he says. I consider my project a form of internet chemotherapy. I sometimes jokingly think of myself as the doctor. Chemotherapy is a harsh treatment that nobody in their right mind would administer to a healthy patient, but the internet was becoming seriously ill in Q3 and Q4 2016, and the moderate remedies were ineffective. The side effects of the treatment were harmful, but the alternative, DDoS bot sizes numbering in the millions, would have been worse. I can only hope that when the IoT relapse comes, will have better ways to deal with it. Besides getting the number of IoT DDoS bots to a manageable level, my other key goal has been to raise awareness. The IoT problem is much worse than most people think, and I have some alarming stories to tell. So basically, he's going to chemotherapy the internet. Okay.
As we've seen the Mirai botnet, go and take form and just utterly trash the internet for days at a time. Drastic measures such as this, while this clearly falls into the like internet Batman black hat-ish, maybe gray hat-ish area of creating malware and going out and executing vigilante justice in our digital battlegrounds. Ultimately, I think this is a good thing. And more importantly, it's getting people talking about it. Whether or not manufacturers will take notice is yet to be seen, but we can hope. Getting more people to talk about this stuff, getting the idea in the public consciousness that when you're buying an internet-connected camera or toaster or car, it's not just a camera or toaster or car anymore, it's actually a computer. So you have to think about the life cycle, you have to think about the longevity of the device, and you have to think about the security implications of putting a device like this out on the net.
I mean, I really wish you would have taken the thing that the BBC did forever ago, where they logged into people's computers and changed their screensavers and said, just a PSA from the BBC, we got into your computer, which was completely illegal as well back then. But instead of bricking the device, I don't know.
I don't know how else you could. I mean, so his application is going in and trying to secure this, which we can only assume, because I don't have the details. We can assume that it's going in and changing these default credentials, which is the best case scenario. But some things, if they've got an API gateway that can be abused, that's always on, there for the device to function. But it can be leveraged and turned into a botnet or made part of a DDoS, attack squadron. Then destroying the device or breaking the device is really the only way you can prevent the risk to the rest of the internet populace. So
anything that causes the cable companies to replace set-top boxes at a more frequent level, I'm all for.
Like, as someone who used to work at a cable company on set-top boxes, I will offer no comment.
I mean, the more times I can have Verizon Fios send me a next day air box to send back a thing, I'm all for. But I guess that's the problem, because we tell people this is insecure, and I mean, I started this hashtag, nobody cares. Really, nobody cares. When we talk about it all the time, where don't use this baby monitor because the neighbors can sniff it out, and the next response is, we don't care. We bought it because it looked pretty. Or you see these ads. I get all these ads on Facebook for like man-in-the-middle devices that will take my traffic and analyze it and block bad things, also known as a man-in-the-middle. So now some company is seeing all my traffic, and here we are complaining that the ISPs can do it. I don't know. So maybe it is the right thing to do to brick it. Maybe there should be like a phone number on it. Like it says, your device doesn't work. Maybe ransomware it. That's what we should do. Put some BrickerBot ransomware. So if it breaks it, we're not going to charge people Bitcoin. We'll make them call a phone number and sit through like a video that says you should watch this.
There was actually, and I forget the name of it, there was actually ransomware that when you got infected with it, it made you watch a few videos on how to avoid getting infected with ransomware before it unlocked your machine. It was really educational. And it didn't demand a ransom or anything except that you watch these 2 security training videos. So stuff like that can work. And I really like the idea of locking up someone's device until, they can secure it. But, yeah, I mean, what's the alternative? I really think, because the vast majority of people, when they buy a webcam that's insecure, it's attacking other websites, most people won't care, right? It gets the job done for them, and it's not hurting them in any measurable way unless one of their sites goes down. So really the only way that they could get hurt by it is if these botnets actually start interrupting device functions, or something like BrickerBot knocks them off the net. It's as much as I would love for there to be a nice, clean engineering solution to this. Internet Batman is the best we've got right now.
So, I mean, yes, I don't want to be infected with this, but I can laugh from a distance.
Yeah, I mean, until we buy our internet cameras and hook them to our internet toasters powered by our internet cars.
I will say this: this is not security related per se, but we're seeing a lot of faucet manufacturers. So your kitchen faucet that has that no touch or no, you don't have to touch it to turn it on, or you don't have to actuate a button mechanically. And I found out from the insurance companies that they're raising the rates for because of flooding, because the cat accidentally goes right by the sensor and it turns on the water and then they leave. And no one would have thought of that. But somebody told me this, and I said, "You're absolutely right. What's the false positive rate on this? If you have an animal or you have a baby, or I don't know, like humidity or like a leaf from plant or something blows by it, or a speck of dust." And it's another one of those, nobody thought of this until the insurance companies figured it out, and now all these people want it. They're still advertising it, and I look at it and I say, no, you can't do it.
And on the flip side of that, on the user experience side of that, if you tighten it too much, right? If you say, okay, it's got to be this certain thing, and we're going to make sure a cat can't trip it, but it doesn't activate when you want it to, now no one's going to buy your thing because your reviews all say, yeah, I was waving my hands underneath the faucet for 20 seconds and it never turned on. Kind of like all the restaurant no hands faucets that you have to sit there and do an interpretive dance for you to get a spritz of water before it instantly shuts off.
My secret conspiracy theory is that it hates the Semitic people because it never works for me, and everyone next to me it just works for. And I think that it's me, but I don't know.
You got to work on your interpretive dance.
I mean, Jerry Seinfeld went on this, and everyone else went on this, and they have all one thing in common. But I don't know. Maybe it's just maybe I don't know. Maybe I'm just really not just that good at it. There was no training in school on how to turn on the motion sensor faucets.
That's what we need. We need to stop teaching kids how to code. We need to teach them how to put up with really awful technology that will invade their lives.
So the next thing I just threw in the chat was, did you see this puny code exploit where Apple, you can't tell the difference between apple.com and emojiapple.com?
I did not, but
Okay.
I've known that this was a theoretical problem for some time and exploited by a couple of phishing sites. That's usually why most browsers will actually take the UTF-8 strings and turn them into a sort of expanded, encoded text, so it doesn't look like the site you're trying to go to. And I forget what that process is called. It's a form of encoding for the URL. They did that to try to avoid someone making, PayPal with a UTF-8 or a high ASCII A to trick people.
I think we got to go a little simpler than that. So, I mean, you're exactly right. But basically, this came into the news last week. People were saying, go to this website, and it would be apple.com. But the A was not really an A. It was an emoji A. So it looked identical. And what we tell people, look for the lock, look for the word secure, look for all this. And it was there. They got the security certificates. They got everything to make it look like it, but it was just a phishing attack. And both Firefox and Chrome are scrambling to fix it. Firefox has a flag that you can do in about:config, and we'll link to it, where you can turn it off. Chrome, I think, pushed out an update yesterday or recently that will stop this. And my question is why, and you may have just explained it, but why would you do this? Why would anybody why would the URL accept UTF-8 strings? Shouldn't it just be ASCII?
No, actually. And actually, this is a great topic to bring up because it's right in the intersection of technology and the internet becoming more worldwide and sort of moving out of the Western regions. So let's say, I'm in Russia or India or China, and I want a domain name in my native tongue, in my native lettering, not westernized, not phoneticized into English. I want it the actual characters that I use on a daily basis that come from my homeland, I want those in the URL bar. We needed the internet and we needed browsers to accept UTF-8 strings. At the same time, there's a lot of characters that look similar to each other that aren't the same. So a browser will interpret it differently, but a layperson human that doesn't know all the different ASCII variations of something that looks like an English lowercase letter A could get tricked. So there's a certain type of URL encoding, and I will look this up and throw it in the chat for everyone, where you can take UTF-8 characters and the browser will show them to you in a different encoded way, I believe based on localization settings. But I'll have to look that up and confirm it. But it all comes down to localization and the internet becoming this great worldwide technology instead of just something exclusive to Western nations that use roughly the same alphabet.
I mean, I looked at it and I went through the article and I was like, yeah, this should stop. But now you're making a good point. What happens if you're looking at a keyboard or a localized alphabet? And we're right. We shouldn't just limit it. But I wish there was a setting. But I'll put a link in the show notes on if you're on Firefox, how to stop it. Like I said, Chrome is issuing an update to stop it and what to look for and how to do it. So I saw that and I said, oh, again, the hackers are getting smarter. That's all it is. They're figuring out all these ways that no one would have thought of, and they're getting people who are not as savvy. But again, I think everyone would have fallen for it.
Yeah, it's a very interesting problem because it lies right in the intersection of trying to make something more useful, but in doing that, you're adding vulnerabilities, and unfortunately there's not a perfect answer to everything. It's patchwork on top of patchwork to try to make this thing safe for everyone but more accessible to everyone else.
So I mean, I guess I'm lucky that I don't run in these circles where I constantly get all these malicious attacks. I mean, I don't think I've ever gotten a ransomware email ever sent to me, even sent to work. I mean, or
Gmail in particular does an incredible job of filtering that stuff out. It's not perfect, but it's really good compared to the competition. Back when I was in college, my university email, several times a day, I would get phishing emails, and they weren't very good phishing emails, but they were still phishing emails. Usually it had, username, password from IT department. Please give me your password with a bunch of underscores, like I had to fill in that line or something. People fell for it because they just didn't know any better. But yeah, Gmail in particular does a fantastic job of getting that stuff out.
And then the last piece of news before we get into some doing it wrong type thing is I saw this LastPass had another bug, but as we disclose it, it's already been fixed basically with their two-factor, something where they didn't hash the two-factor code correctly that allowed somebody to bypass it. I mean, again, this is a very technical thing and it's hard to get right, but when you're dealing with your password manager and being secure, you don't want any of this. It's too hard for most people. You want it to be bulletproof all the way around.
Yeah, and I like to remind people of this over and over again because we do have new listeners occasionally. Hello, everyone listening for the first time. But just because your password manager has a vulnerability, just because they hit the tech blogs, as in LastPass has this vulnerability, 1Password has a vulnerability, you don't need to look at software. Your software has bugs. All software has bugs. All software has most software has security issues and stuff that they need to fix. What you need to pay attention to is not that the bug exists, but how the company responds to it. LastPass got to work right away on this. They patched it quickly. They disclosed it to the world. They said, okay, here's what was messed up. Here's what we did to correct it. And that turnaround time is very small. It's very short. And that's what you need to look at, is you need to look at how these companies respond to security incidents, not necessarily that there was one. In the case of, Yahoo, they are, actively losing money in their Verizon merger deal because they refused to disclose a security incident because they sat on their hands and they didn't want any bad press. Well, now it's coming back to bite them. And now, if you're a Yahoo user, you're sitting there wondering, what else is there that they're not telling me about? Rest assured, if there's an issue with LastPass, you'll hear about it pretty soon after it's fixed.
I mean, I guess the thing you don't want to hear is really, really boneheaded mistakes. I mean, with all these, is that no, you or I couldn't recreate this. I mean, you could follow their rules and get it, but this is not something that is easily recreatable or something that is very simple to do. I mean, a few years ago, when you hear, oh, LastPass was hacked. No, they weren't hacked. They noticed that some weird traffic may have taken some sort of their master key blobs that were encrypted all the right way, hash, salted, and everything else. And their response was, we don't know what happened, but as a precaution, everyone has to change their master password. And they didn't say, they said, this is what we think happened. It wasn't boneheaded. The problem is that people hear this and say, oh, they were hacked. No, they weren't hacked. They noticed something and they were proactive. Same thing when Tavis Ormandy goes after them and we said, and we're saying the same thing. You have the best white hat hacker in the world saying, here, let's work together to fix this, to make this better. I'm just waiting for Tavis to go on to the others because I think LastPass has been taking the beating in the last few weeks and they need some good press.
I mean, so you could task Tavis Ormandy with finding security holes in a grilled cheese sandwich, and he'd come back to you with a 25-page report, and you would never eat grilled cheese again. The guy, he's just a god. He's the best at what he does. But yeah, I completely agree. What you need to look for if you are going to look at security shaming for certain companies, look at things like if your password manager, the website that you're advertising your password manager with, doesn't use HTTPS. That's usually a pretty bright red flag that you should stay far, far away from whatever software they're peddling.
I mean, like I said, LastPass, we talk about LastPass, we talk about 1Password, we talk about Keeper, and you gotta go through it. But at the end of the day, using anything other than reusing the same passwords. I mean, we talk about not keeping it under your keyboard, but a password journal isn't the worst idea if you're changing your passwords. If each website has a completely different password and you realize that you shouldn't leave this under the keyboard, you're doing better than most other people. So when we say LastPass had a vulnerability and fixed it, that should not stop you from using any of these. The fact that you're using it makes your life a whole lot better.
Yeah, it's really, it's all about the target on your back. It's about making that as small as possible. It's taking the risk that everyone inherently has attached to, whatever digital lifestyle that they choose to have, and making that risk as small as possible. Not using the same password everywhere. You can, if you want to, you can rotate them. I don't rotate the vast majority of my passwords because they're long, they're complex, they're not shared anywhere. And if I get a breach notification, I'll change that one site. And you have to balance that with, how much pain you're willing to put up with. If you're using 64 character passwords that you only keep in your head and they're all unique and you change them every 7 days, your lifestyle is far different than mine. I just don't have the time to spend on security that way. But yeah, there's got to be a balance there.
And so look, we use LastPass, and by the way, LastPass wouldn't have been fooled by the puny code exploit. That's the one with Apple spelled with emoji, because these password managers are looking for equivalent domains, and the computer can parse this way better than we can. So just having that saved would have saved you from going there. Instead of you being worried about how they're going to steal your two-factor code, I would be more worried about you going to a fraudulent website.
One of the best security features that your password manager can have is autofill. I know there were autofill vulnerabilities in the past, but having the autofill available in there is a fantastic boon to your security, mostly because it's only going to autofill if the URL matches what you've saved it under. If it doesn't, it's not going to. So if you're copying and pasting from a password manager into your web browser, it's actually less safe than having autofill turned on.
So, okay, at this point, we went through a couple stories. I want to go through a couple of they're doing it wrong type stories. And I just want to give a shout out to InfoSec Taylor Swift, who tweeted at go to my new favorite site, Reagan.com. I want everyone to, if you're listening to this, pause it, go to https www.reagan.com, like the president. It is private email for the conservative leaning type of person. I don't know if that's the right, but you could pay them for $33 a year. You can get your own secure email and have a Reagan.
Do they say secure, or is it just private email?
Oh, private. Sorry, private.
Private email.
And I already tried Ronald. I tried Nancy. I tried Reagan. I tried all of them, and they were all taken. But I don't know. It was just it's if you, it looks like a pretty site. They tell you why it's private, but when you go through their privacy policy and you actually read it, it tells you all these things. It tells you that we will sell stuff. And it's like, I thought you said you were private.
Yeah, I need to look at this privacy policy. It's these services pop up. They're kind of dime a dozen for secure this, private that. One of the big things, one of the big tenets in security, one of the three legs, depending on who you talk to, is going to be availability, and that's kind of where like DDoS attacks come into. Security involves being able to access systems that you expect to access, and if you can't, that's generally a problem. But how long is this email service going to last? How long are they going to stay afloat? Their funding model of saying, okay, you have to pay us and we're giving you an email address, that's a good thing. That's a good sign. It's not like some random messenger service that says, oh yeah, we're totally secure, sign up with us. By the way, we have no idea how we're making our money. We might not exist next year. But that's one of the things you have to consider is, especially with email, something that's very long lived. How long is that going to be around? My current guess, if I had to place bets, is somewhere in the range of 2 to 3 years. I don't think this is going to last very long. You also have to look at what kind of security staff do these people have. Email servers are pretty lucrative targets. You can get a lot of info on people very quickly if you hack an email server. The people at Google that run Gmail, they've got a 24/7 security staff that their whole job is to make sure that Gmail is safe. Yahoo probably wouldn't trust them anymore. Microsoft Outlook, the Outlook.com stuff, yeah, sure, they've got a decent security record. Generally, the bigger the player and the more money they're putting into their service, the safer you are generally. That's not a hard and fast rule. But it's just some food for thought.
I mean, just reading their privacy policy just here. Well, before we get to that, like you're right. My two sons were born, and we talked about what should we get them a domain? What should we do? And I said, I don't think we should register them email addresses because you know what? I don't think Gmail is going to be around in 15 years. And if they are, okay, maybe they want this one, maybe they want a different one. So we initially said no, and then I just quickly registered them anyway. Who knows? But we didn't get a domain name. We probably should have. But to think about it, like we said, where is this going to be in 15 years? We may not be using websites. We may be using something else. So who knows? But I do want to read from this privacy policy about how they're going to be private. It says advertising networks providers that we use collect non-personal identifiable information such as your browser type, your operating system, web pages visited, time of visit, contents, ads, and other clickstream data. So basically, they're being private, but they're putting ads on the email, by the way, just like Gmail, which is collecting information. What I really think is that somebody got the access to Reagan.com and is doing Gmail on the domain to make this work and charging $33 a year.
It's very, very possible. Although I don't know if you can resell Google Apps domains to users. I don't know if that's the way it works. I'll have to look at Google's terms of use. But standing up an email server isn't it's not trivial to get one stood up and to make it, past all the spam blocker lists and auto block lists. But it's not a hard project per se. So yeah, I don't know if they'll be there long term. We'll have to see.
And at this point, we're basically done. I mean, we're out of time, but we had a lot more stories to cover. I just want to throw a shout out to the WhatsApp group again. You just tweet at us. We'll get you right in. It's a simple link. We just can't post it publicly because we don't want the spam. So come on in, share stories. We use these stories all the time. We really do need the help. Always these interesting stories are good. And I think that's it. I don't have that much more other than I hope you're happy over in Seattle.
I am so far. It's also a bit damp. It's apparently it rains a lot in Seattle, from what I've heard. And I've got a nice waterproof coat sitting next to me that I've made very good use of, more use than it's ever seen. So.
And then last plug for me is I'm an organizer of the Crypto and Privacy Village over at DEF CON. So we are looking for talks. So if you have a crypto and privacy talk, cryptovillage.org, submit it. I'm on the paper review board. So give us your topics and hopefully we can accept you. And I think that's it. So we'll see everyone hopefully next week.
Yeah, we should be able to do next week. Okay. Unless I'm moving.
Well, hopefully not. Okay. Okay, bye, everybody.
See you, everyone.